This is the Newsload.
So I have a quote. Laughter is how we see freedom. How do you...
Well, laughter is certainly involved in, yes, there's a freedom to laughter. Certainly after you laugh, you feel free, don't you? You feel good. You feel like there's a weight off your shoulders in some ways, right?
Almost like a tickle massage.
It's a therapy. And I have told people, you know, young comics at Humber College, for instance, that ultimately they're in the therapy business. And their job is to make people's burden lighter, to lighten their burden. So, yes, there's an element of freedom involved in comedy. And, you know, when I started this, I never had a political agenda, and I still don't. But I did have a psychological agenda. And my psychological agenda was to make people feel that they have the mental freedom to be able to say and think whatever they want to say and think. Because everywhere you go, people judge you. Everywhere you go, you fight public opinion. You fight tradition. And isn't it great that there's a place and there's a kind of thing you can do called comedy that has no respect for public opinion? I don't know. I think when I first started, a lot of my stuff was fueled by the resentment that I was not the most popular kid growing up. And finally, I was
Your inner child.
I was in a place where I kind of controlled the dialogue, and that was a great feeling. And especially when it came to women, I used to make fun of women in the front row. It was just something. I used to grab their purses. You know about purse snatch?
No.
Purse snatch was a bit that I was sort of famous for at the time. Remember at Yuck Yucks, your comic is right in front of the audience.
Oh yeah, like
they're right
it's
there.
Literally a stage table.
They've pretty much got their feet on your stage.
Yeah.
And what I would do is they would come in, they would put their purses just on that lip of the stage, and I would grab the purse and I would go through the contents of the purse.
What a time consumption. You know? Did you do a good 10 minutes of that?
5, 6 minutes of it. Oh, it brought down the house. I would do things like, you know, they would have a bank book, and I would read out the balance of the bank book. Then I would they would have checks, and I would distribute the checks to everybody, and I'd say, make sure you don't write more than, you know, the balance, which is, and then I would go over the balance again.
That's identity theft.
Oh yeah, this was a wild piece. And sometimes people would steal things. Like in the beginning I had ashtrays. You could smoke in the clubs in the very beginning.
When was this?
78. So.
Was there a smoking and a non-smoking section?
No, you could smoke wherever you wanted to smoke.
The whole club?
Oh yeah, it was awful for me. I'm a
cloud?
non-smoking. Yeah, it was like Ron Vaudreuil used to make a joke about, thanks, we haven't cured the hams yet. But we had Yuck Yucks ashtrays, right? Yeah. And sometimes I would open up somebody's purse and they had stolen the ashtray already. Sometimes I would find drugs
nice.
in there. Right?
Oh my God, like a bag of cocaine?
Never cocaine, but I found pills and I would find pot. The pot I'd put in my pocket. And everybody would go crazy laughing. And later on, so the person would come up to me and say, can I have, you know, what you took? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And I would wind up with a nice bag of pot for the night.
For all the comics.
Yeah. But sometimes there would be pills, and I would take the pills. I would take 2 pills. And twice I was rushed to the hospital because I had to have my stomach pumped. All kinds of stuff that I would find in there. And I would have set up, like everybody would have a hairbrush, and I would make it like it was a vibrator, like thousands of tiny fingers urging you to let go. And I would flip it over. Where do you put the batteries in? And people would go nuts. Go nuts. But I could only do that with women because men didn't really carry purses, especially in those days.
And they could punch you.
Well, a woman did put her cigarette out on my neck. Never mess with women from Buffalo. This is my advice to everybody who's watching right now. Never mess with women from Buffalo. Yeah, in fact, there may be, do you see a little scar? Like it hurt.
There's a little bump.
Yeah.
The pain and the suffering
it was, yeah, I don't know if anybody's ever burned you with a cigarette, but wow.
No.
It is unbelievably painful.
No, they've burned me with their words.
I know. You know, they say we live in a free country, but what does that really mean? It may mean that there are no laws against certain things, but there are all kinds of public relations issues and the way that people want you to think and want you to act. You can't really be free in life. You can't tell your boss what you really think of him. You can't really tell your wife what you really think of her.
You can, but you might start a fight.
Yeah, and you don't want to start a fight. But in comedy, it's like free parking in the Monopoly board. You can kind of do and say whatever you want as long as people understand that that's the game. And they do understand that that's the game. I'm fine with what the woke people want. I mean, who doesn't want equality? Who doesn't want, who doesn't want some form of equality? But when it comes to the arts, that's not what it's about, because it's a much more complex thing. Comedy especially involves irony and levels of irony. What the person says is not exactly and precisely what he means. I was talking to Andrew Dice Clay the other day, kind of reviving my friendship with him from many, many years ago.
Good for you.
And I said to him, I can't understand why everybody was so against you. It was so obvious that that was a character you were playing. And if anybody should have been upset, it should have been Italian Americans, because you were really making fun of them.
Yeah. Hey.
You know, so we don't care about woke stuff. I booked Louis C.K. after the scandal.
Yes, you did. That was fascinating.
And I got no blowback on it, because everybody's attitude who was against it was sort of, well, that's of course, what do you expect from Breslin? And that's fine. That gives me a lot of freedom to do what I want. We also booked Jeremy Piven, and if you remember, there was a lot of controversy on Jeremy Piven as well.
What was that?
He had gone. Do you know who he is?
Yeah,
he's the guy from the Entourage.
Yeah. Very talented.
He had gone to the Playboy mansion, and he had hustled the playmates. He had kissed them, and he squeezed the breasts of one of them. Look, I've been to the Playboy mansion. You might as well have a big sign that says, "Please squeeze the breasts."
This is the Newsload.